The last hope of humanity. Commander Fenris watched the video feed of the massacre unfold before his eyes. His Trill soldiers were mercilessly gunning down the last remaining humans, their blood staining the streets of what had once been bustling cities. It was meant to be the final act in their conquest of Earth. The planet had been easy to overtake, the human defenses woefully inadequate. What should have been a swift and efficient operation to eliminate humanity now felt almost wrong. Something didn't sit right with Fenris as he watched the humans, their faces filled with grim determination, smiling defiantly in their final moments. They're not fighting back. They're just accepting it, Fenris muttered, his voice tinged with something he couldn't quite identify. It felt like a trap, but he couldn't yet grasp its shape. A cold shiver ran down his spine, though he pushed it aside. His people, the Trill, had the advantage. They had invaded Earth with ease, overrunning human cities in mere days. Their weapons, far more advanced than anything humanity could muster, had made quick work of Earth's defenses. The humans' lack of resistance had been puzzling at first, but seemed to confirm what the Trill had always assumed, that humanity's extinction was inevitable. The human race was weak, unable to fight back, destined to be wiped out by superior forces. Fenris turned to his second-in-command, a sharp-eyed Trill named Quaz, who was standing at attention. "Have you decrypted that Valkyrie contingency file from Earth's northern polar region yet?" he asked, his tone laced with impatience. Quaz hesitated, eyes flicking nervously before answering. "Not yet, sir. But whatever it is, it's labeled Last Resort, in big red letters. Thousands of encrypted personal entries. It must be where they were hiding their elites." Fenris sneered, his long green fingers steepling as he sat back in his command chair. "No matter. Soon, they'll all be dead, just like the rest of their pathetic race. I want names and locations immediately." His voice grew colder, harder. The sight of the humans' defiance in death had unsettled him, but he dismissed it quickly. In the end, the Trill would wipe them all out. Despite Fenris's assurance, something gnawed at him. The video feed of humans falling one after another played in his mind. The Trill had underestimated humanity's resilience before, and he wondered for the briefest moment if this feeling was a warning. He dismissed it, leaning back and letting his mind wander. He had to admit, taking Earth had been suspiciously easy. Earth's technological defenses were primitive at best. The humans had been using weapons that seemed like something from another age. Yet, here they were, dead. Fenris was convinced it was a mere formality. A handful of scattered pockets of resistance wouldn't last long against the might of the Trill Empire. Still, the way the humans had behaved, so calmly accepting their fate, had been unlike any other species he had encountered. The war had been over before it had even truly begun, or so Fenris thought. But now, something more sinister seemed to be unfolding. Something he didn't quite understand. Beneath the ice of Earth's Arctic region, deep in the frozen silence, a hidden facility hummed with life. Below the surface, deep inside the massive vaults and chambers, a row of cryogenic pods hissed open. The cold mist spilled out into the sterile chamber, slowly dissipating to reveal the genetically enhanced super soldiers that Earth had hidden away for centuries. Randy Bennett, once a regular human soldier, now a part of Earth's Valkyrie contingency, was the first to awaken. His mind, fogged from centuries of dormancy, slowly cleared as he rose from the pod. His body, still covered in a thin frost, felt stiff as he struggled to move. His eyes flicked open, a steely determination already forming in the depths of his gaze. The cold did little to deter him. He was designed for this moment. For the first time, in over 100 years, Randy Bennett was awake, and he was angry. He could feel the years of freezing suspension melt away as his muscles twitched, slowly coming to life again. His gaze, intense and focused, scanned the unfamiliar surroundings. He was no longer in the world he once knew. He had been asleep when the world fell, when humanity had been overwhelmed by the Trill. But he wasn't dead. As he stood, Groaning with the effort of forcing his body into motion, the sound of additional pods opening echoed through the chamber. One by one, more soldiers began to stir, their movements slow at first, but soon growing steadier with each passing second. Each soldier was a mirror image of the other, a flawless creation engineered for the sole purpose of protecting humanity. Randy took a step forward, his boots crunching the frozen ground. He heard the faint sound of footsteps behind him, and knew that his fellow Valkyries were also coming to life. He wasn't alone in this. The air around him grew thick with the sound of hissing pods, and the sight of dozens of genetically enhanced humans waking from their centuries-long slumber filled him with a grim sense of purpose. This was humanity's last resort, the final plan that had been set into motion just before the Trill's invasion. If the worst came to pass, if humanity was doomed, these super soldiers would rise. They would fight back. The first Trill soldier, stationed near the entrance to the vault, stumbled backward in panic as he saw Randy Bennett standing, fully awake, his eyes already locked on the intruders. The soldier's weapon was trained on him, but he hesitated. Randy's gaze was too sharp, too commanding. He was no ordinary human. He was something more, a soldier born to withstand the worst the universe had to offer. The Trill soldier fumbled for a moment, unsure whether to shoot or retreat. His hand shook slightly, his eyes glued to the human as though he were a wild animal. Unpredictable, dangerous. The Trill's confusion was short-lived. He raised his weapon, aiming it at the human's chest. "Stay back," the soldier ordered, his voice wavering. But the human didn't flinch. He stood perfectly still, his expression cold and unwavering. And then something unexpected happened. From behind Randy, more Valkyries emerged from their pods, falling into perfect formation behind him. Dozens of them. Hundreds, all perfectly synchronized, their eyes as cold as the icy chamber around them. The second Trill soldier raised his weapon as well, but his resolve wavered as he saw the scale of what was happening. This wasn't a single human. This was an army designed to fight back against overwhelming odds. These humans weren't like the others. They had been hidden away, ready for this exact moment. Randy took a step forward, his voice cutting through the cold silence. "We are the Valkyrie contingency," he said, his voice strong and resonant. "We are humanity's last resort, and we will not fall." Fenris's voice crackled through the comms, his voice tinged with anger and disbelief. "What do you mean awake? I thought these humans were frozen in stasis." The Trill soldier on the other end responded, his voice shaky. "They're awake, sir. All of them. The entire Valkyrie contingency. They've risen." Fenris's heart skipped a beat as he processed the words. He had underestimated humanity. This wasn't just a race of weaklings. This wasn't a species waiting to be crushed. No, humanity had a hidden strength, a deep well of power that no one had seen before. The Trill had made a grave mistake, and now they were about to learn what it meant to provoke humanity. The chill of the Arctic facility was palpable, a biting cold that seemed to seep into the very bones of anyone who entered. Yet within the cryogenic chambers, a low hum resonated through the air as the cryopods slowly powered to life. The soft hiss of frozen technology coming undone filled the chamber as each of the soldiers emerged from their centuries-long slumber. It was as if time itself had paused, waiting for the moment when humanity's last resort would rise. Randy Bennett, still groggy from his long sleep, was the first to fully regain his composure. As he stepped off the pod platform, his senses heightened. His body, designed to withstand unimaginable stress and fatigue, began to process the reality of the situation. He could feel the raw power of his engineered muscles working in unison as he took his first few steps. The sight before him was unsettling. He wasn't alone. More Valkyrie soldiers were waking, each one equipped with advanced battle-ready suits and weapons designed to fight in any environment. He took a deep breath, adjusting to the sudden surge of energy rushing through him. The heavy weight of his mission settled over his shoulders, and with it, a grim sense of duty. This was no longer a world that he recognized. The Earth had fallen, and humanity's last hope rested with him and his fellow soldiers, an army that had been hidden beneath the ice, away from the prying eyes of the alien invaders. They had been engineered for one singular purpose: to fight, to protect, and to reclaim what had been lost. The sound of footsteps echoed through the icy hall as one soldier after another began to emerge from their cryopods. Each of them moved with precision, instinctively taking up formation in perfect unity. Their faces were hard, their expressions unwavering. They were soldiers, warriors forged in the crucible of humanity's darkest hour. Randy turned to face the group, feeling a surge of pride and fear in equal measure. He was their leader, chosen to guide them in this final battle. He had no idea what had happened to the Earth in the time they had been in stasis, but he knew one thing: it was time to fight back. A voice broke the silence, a woman's voice, strong and commanding. "Commander Bennett, the rest of the Valkyrie forces are ready for deployment. We have full combat capabilities at our disposal." Randy nodded grimly. "Thank you, Lieutenant Ross. I knew we weren't alone." His eyes scanned the room, meeting the eyes of each soldier in turn. "We may not have chosen this war, but it's one we'll finish. The Trill thought they could wipe us out. They thought we were weak. But now they'll see what happens when humanity is pushed to the edge." The soldiers responded in unison, a low murmur of affirmation rippling through the chamber. Outside the facility, the Trill forces were busy with their mission of securing Earth's last remaining human assets. They had no idea that the real threat had been lying dormant beneath the ice, waiting to awaken. Commander Fenris, in his arrogance, had believed humanity to be a dying species, one that would roll over and submit to the might of the Trill Empire. But now, as the first signs of the Valkyrie awakening spread across the planet's frozen north, the Trill's complacency was about to be shattered. The Trill commander had grown used to victory. His people had conquered countless worlds, and Earth had been just another in a long line of successes. But now, as Fenris stared at the reports coming in from his soldiers, his calm confidence began to erode. "Commander Fenris," a voice crackled through his comms, "the humans. They're alive. They've awoken." Fenris's eyes widened, his breath catching in his chest. "What do you mean, alive? They were all supposed to be extinct. They were crushed, eradicated." His voice grew more agitated. "You're telling me there were survivors?" The officer on the other end hesitated before responding. "Yes, sir. It appears we missed something. Something we didn't account for. They've awoken, and they're mobilizing. We estimate thousands are active, all with advanced combat capabilities." Fenris stood frozen for a moment, the weight of the revelation settling heavily on him. He had thought the humans' last hope had been extinguished. The planet was theirs, and their victory was assured. But now, a new fear took hold, one that threatened to unravel everything the Trill had built. "What do we know about them?" Fenris growled, recovering from his shock. "They call themselves the Valkyrie Contingency," the officer reported, his voice shaking slightly. "They're a genetically enhanced force, trained for extreme combat situations. Their strength is far beyond anything we've encountered." Fenris's mind raced. He had been underestimating humanity from the very beginning. It wasn't just their numbers, their weapons, or their primitive technology. It was their ability to adapt, to survive against impossible odds, that had been their true strength all along. And now, it seemed the human race was not only surviving, it was coming for vengeance. "I want a full assessment of their capabilities. Now," Fenris ordered, his tone sharp. "We cannot allow this threat to grow. We must crush them before they have the chance to regroup." Back in the Arctic facility, Randy Bennett and his team were already making preparations for their first offensive. The Valkyrie soldiers had no time to waste. The Trill forces were spread thin, their attention focused on securing the planet's resources. But the Valkyrie soldiers knew better than to underestimate their enemies. They would not be fighting with the luxury of time on their side. Every moment counted. "Listen up," Randy barked, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. "The Trill think they've won. They think we're done. But they've forgotten one thing. The strength of humanity is in our ability to rise when all seems lost. We're going to show them what happens when you push us too far. We take back what's ours, and we do it now." His words ignited a fire within the hearts of the Valkyrie soldiers. They knew what was at stake. Earth was their home, and they had been given a second chance to fight for it. This time, they would not be the ones to fall. Randy moved to a large tactical display, his fingers hovering over the holographic interface. The map of the world flickered before him, showing the locations of the remaining Trill forces. They were spread thin, their resources stretched to the limit. This was the moment. The Valkyrie soldiers would strike with the precision and force only they could deliver. "We hit them fast, hit them hard. No mercy," Randy ordered. "This is our world. We will not let the Trill take it from us." The soldiers nodded in unison. This was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming their legacy, their freedom, and their future. The battle for Earth begins. The roar of the Valkyrie soldiers echoed through the Arctic facility as Randy Bennett and his team moved swiftly into position. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. These soldiers weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to reclaim Earth from the Trill. Humanity had been on the brink of extinction, its cities burning, its people slaughtered, yet from the depths of the frozen wasteland, humanity's fiercest warriors had emerged. The Trill had no idea what they had unleashed. The vast Arctic chambers were a hive of activity, with Valkyrie soldiers preparing for the mission ahead. The soldiers moved with mechanical precision, their movements efficient as they suited up in their combat exo-armor, advanced suits designed to enhance strength, speed, and endurance. Each soldier was a living weapon, genetically modified, and trained for extreme combat. They were the last remnants of humanity's hope, and their mission was clear. Strike swiftly and decisively, dismantling the Trill forces before they had a chance to regroup. Randy Bennett, standing at the center of the operations room, surveyed his team. His jaw was set, his eyes focused, every part of him radiating the intensity of the battle ahead. He knew this would be no easy task. The Trill were relentless, and their invasion had been swift, with little resistance. But Randy had seen the courage in the eyes of the humans who had died. Their last smiles, their defiance in the face of annihilation. It was more than a symbol of their courage. It was a warning. They had laid the groundwork for something bigger. And now, the Valkyrie would finish what they had started. "We don't have the luxury of time." Randy's voice rang out, cutting through the chatter of the room. "The Trill have spread their forces thin, and they're arrogant. But don't mistake that for weakness. They will fight back harder than we've ever seen. But we got something they don't. We fight for Earth. We fight for humanity's future. And we will win." The soldiers responded in unison, a fierce wave of affirmation that surged through the room. They knew the stakes. They were Earth's final stand, and they would not fail. Randy turned toward the holographic map that flickered to life in front of him. The Trill forces had overrun major cities, their military bases strategically placed around Earth's most vital resources. Their primary stronghold was in what had once been Moscow, now heavily fortified. But the Trill had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, its ability to survive even in the most extreme of conditions. "We start with their power grid," Randy continued. "Cut off their resources, cripple their infrastructure. Without that, they won't be able to move or reinforce. Then, we hit their communications. We need to isolate them, make sure they can't coordinate. After that, we go straight for their command center. We take down Fenris and his top officers." The soldiers nodded, their eyes cold and determined. They had been waiting for this moment for so long, and now the time had come to strike. The Trill were on high alert. Commander Fenris had received the distress reports from the front lines. His troops were being attacked by an unknown force, their resources rapidly dwindling. It made no sense. His intelligence had assured him that the last human resistance had been eliminated. But now, his soldiers were reporting strange movements, unexplained energy surges coming from the Arctic region. A sense of unease spread across the Trill command center. Fenris had always trusted his intelligence, but the reports were becoming harder to dismiss. "Get me a live feed from the Arctic," Fenris commanded, his voice tense. He couldn't allow any surprises. The last thing he needed was a distraction that could undo everything the Trill had worked for. A few moments later, the screen flickered, and a live feed from the frozen wastelands of the north appeared. What it showed took Fenris's breath away. Human soldiers, clad in advanced battle suits, were moving with purpose. Dozens, no, hundreds of them. They were armed, ready for battle, and their efficiency was terrifying. The Valkyrie had awoken. The last hope of humanity was not only alive, it was well organized, fully equipped, and prepared to fight. The color drained from Fenris's face. How is this possible? He muttered to himself, his mind racing. His forces had cleared Earth. They had eradicated the last of the human resistance. But this was something else entirely. A low growl rose from the depths of his throat as he slammed his fist on the armrest of his command chair. "I want all available forces on high alert. Activate all defensive measures. We cannot allow these human experiments to take control of Earth." But as the Trill scrambled to respond, the Valkyrie were already making their move. The first strike came swiftly. The Valkyrie soldiers deployed in the dead of night, their movements silent as shadows. They moved through the cold terrain, the light of the moon casting eerie shadows on the snow. The Trill power grid, located deep within an abandoned military base on the outskirts of what was once the Canadian wilderness, became their first target. Randy led the charge, his voice calm, and controlled over the comms. "Team 1, you're on the generators. Disable everything. Team 2, cover the perimeter. We don't want any surprises." With surgical precision, the soldiers infiltrated the base, disabling power sources with their advanced tech. The Trill had no idea what was happening until it was too late. The lights flickered and died, plunging the base into total darkness. Within minutes, the Valkyrie soldiers had taken control, eliminating the Trill guards with lethal efficiency. One soldier, known only as Sergeant Awaken, moved with a particular coldness. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to eliminate enemies before they even knew he was there. His eyes, cold as ice, betrayed no emotion as he took down another Trill soldier, his advanced weaponry tearing through armor with ease. "We've disabled the grid," Awaken reported into his comms. "Their power's gone. We've cut them off from everything." "Excellent work," Randy replied, his voice carrying the authority of a leader who knew the importance of their actions. "Now we move to communications. We need to cripple their ability to respond. The Trill won't know what hit them." Back in the Trill command center, the situation was rapidly deteriorating. Fenris paced furiously, watching his screens as the reports flooded in. How did they get so organized? How are they so strong? They must have been preparing for this moment all along, one of his officers said, her voice trembling with fear. "They're overwhelming our forces. We can't keep up." Fenris ground his teeth, trying to think of a way to salvage the situation. The human soldiers, with their advanced genetic modifications, were unlike anything he had encountered before. He had dismissed them as a last-ditch effort, a failed contingency, but now he realized how wrong he had been. These weren't the same humans he had wiped out before. These soldiers were a threat unlike any other. "We need reinforcements. We need to bring in the full might of the fleet," Fenris said, his voice rising in desperation. "Call for backup. If they think they can win, they are gravely mistaken. We will crush them." But as he issued his orders, he knew deep down that the Trill were losing the war they thought they had already won. The Valkyrie were more than just humanity's last hope. They were its vengeance, and the Trill were about to learn that when humans are pushed too far, they fight back with everything they've got.